Hello. Welcome everyone. I'm Samrat Modi, serving president at CSIR, SPI CSIO Chandigarh Student Chapter. I welcome you all in our today's webinar titled Women in Optics, Managing and Navigating Real-Time Leadership Challenges. With us is our speaker, Ms. Alaina. She's from USA and she is the author of book Networking for Nerds. Our chapter advisor, Dr. Umesh Tiwari, will shortly introduce to you all. Let me explain the structure of the talk. First, Dr. Tiwari sir will introduce the speaker. Then the speaker will give her lecture. After that, there will be a question answer session, and then there will be concluding remarks. So I request all, if you have any question in between, you can use the chat box and put your query over there. And after the end of her talk, we will Aditi will take a question one by one and direct to her. And if you want to directly interact with her, and then after the chat question from chat box gets completed, you can unmute yourself and direct your question to her. So for our this talk, people world have registered, and not only from India, or also from Mexico and US and other places also. So I welcome you all in this talk by her. Now I invite our chapter advisor, Dr. Umesh Tiwari, to kindly introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Kesav. So a very good evening to all of you. Warm welcome to today our eminent speaker, Miss Alaina G. Levine, and all the attendees from the India and overseas. And now I take this opportunity for the benefit of the attendees to introduce today's speaker. Miss Alaina is an award-winning entrepreneur, STEM career consultant, science journalist, professional speaker, and corporate comedian. Her book, Networking for Nerd, published by Wiley 2015, beat out Einstein for the honor of being named one of the top 5 books of 2015 by Physics Today. As president of Quantum Success Solution, she is a prolific speaker and writer on career development and professional advancement for engineers and scientists. She has delivered more than 700 speeches for clients in the US, Europe, Mexico, Canada, Africa, and Asia, and has written over 400 articles in publications such as Nature, Science, Scientific American, National Geographic News, Watch, and Smithsonian. She has served as a career columnist for Physics Today and the American Physical Society, APS News. She also writes Your Unicorn Career, a career column for science career about finding your professional bliss. Levine authored 2 online courses for Oxford University Press on career development and entrepreneurship. Is a consultant, speaker, and writer for the Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting, and served as the event manager for an international conference on photonics. She holds bachelor degree in mathematics and anthropology with a certificate in Middle Eastern Studies from the University of Arizona, and studied at the American University in Cairo as a US Department of Defense Warren Fellow. So with this great introduction of our speaker, She is a very, very eminent speaker, writer, and a leader. So with this, I welcome again, madam, and I invite you to deliver your talk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tiwari. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Tiwari. Thank you so much, Keshav. Thank you so much to your chapter. I am excited to be here. I am so pumped with energy. It's 6:30 in the morning here in the United States where I'm located. I've had 3 cups of coffee and I am ready to go. Are you all ready to go with me? Are we going to have a great day this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever the heck we are in the world? Yes? Yes. Okay. Yes. All right. Thank you, Anurag. Yes. All right. So we're here today to talk about leadership challenges and how to navigate leadership challenges, particularly as women, but I'm also thinking about the men in the audience as well. So as Dr. Tiwari mentioned, I have a background in science. I'm a nerd, just like you. I'm a proud nerd. My background is in mathematics and physics. Excuse me. I started at the University of Arizona, which many of you know for its optical sciences program and degrees. I started there aiming to be a theoretical astrophysicist. So I started as a physics and astronomy major. I found that I loved mathematics so much that I wanted to major in it. So I switched to mathematics, but I never ever left the physics, the physical sciences community. And in fact, I've been working with physical scientists and engineers, and in particular, optical scientists and photonic engineers, really my entire career. So to be able to talk to your chapter and to be able to interact with emerging optical science and photonic engineering goddesses and gods like yourselves around the world, and especially in India, this is truly a privilege and an honor, and I don't take it lightly that I'm here. So I want to thank you so much. So let me show my screen and then we will go ahead and get started. Okay, so talking about today, we're going to be talking a little bit about how to manage and navigate real-time leadership challenges. Of course, this is something that we're all thinking about right now, especially with COVID, with quarantines, with the pandemic, with economic crises that are coming up. All of these things are going to influence us as we try to move forward and do our work. And it doesn't matter where we are in our career or when we are in our career, we will always be in a position of leadership. And my colleague, Sarah Andrews of Oxford University Press, I love this statement that she makes. She talks about leadership without authority. Leadership without authority. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is truly leadership without authority. So what does that mean? It means that even if we are not in a job or a position where we are given a title that says manager or a title that says leader, that doesn't mean that we can't be a leader. And I'm going to give you definitions of leadership to be able to think about. But really what it means is that we're always leading a team of at least one person, right? And the team consists of us. Now, there might be an opportunity as we advance in our career, as we advance in schooling, where we're leading other people as well. But we always start with leading a team of one, and that's us. And then we're leading also projects. And the projects that we're leading are the things that we are trying to accomplish. And in school, that could include projects in our classwork or outside research projects. It could also literally include just tests. It could include assignments and homework. So it doesn't have to be, again, something where you are appointed in a position of leadership or you are given a project to manage under the guise of that you were assigned by somebody else. It's all about how we manage and lead our own lives and how we manage and lead our own projects. It expands from there, interestingly, as well. But I think as women, what's interesting to me about this topic that I wanted to share with you is that, so as a woman in science and mathematics, you know, when I was at university, pretty much as I expanded into or accelerated into higher grades and higher levels, there were less and less women in my classes, right? And so oftentimes, especially when I got to the very high level mathematics classes, I could be maybe just one or two. There could be just two women in my mathematics classes. This wasn't a problem for me, but what it meant to me was that since I didn't see the representation of myself in those classes, I had to be sure of myself because I wasn't able to look at somebody else to be able to guide me, since there weren't those types of role models. And what I find as we navigate our careers, as we navigate our professional spheres, which includes schooling and beyond, is that we have to make sure that we are championing ourselves, that we are standing up for ourselves to get what we need and what we want to be our most successful. That doesn't mean that we brag. It doesn't mean that we are inappropriate in the way we promote ourselves in any way. Absolutely, it's the opposite. It means that we have to be generous with other people, to let other people know what it is that we could potentially help them with, or what it is that we could potentially do for them or with them, or assist them with to help them move the agenda forward for their program, for their project, for their enterprise. And so I think particularly for women, it means that we have to stand up for ourselves more. But what I've found is that the more we do it, the better we get, and the easier and the simpler it becomes. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And as Keshav said, and Dr. Tiwari, I will be taking questions at the end. So please put them in the chat. Please let me know how I can help you. So I also want to invite you to tweet. You are welcome to post anything that I say. You're welcome to take screenshots and post those if you'd like. Take the screenshots, keep them for yourself. Of course, this is being recorded as well. And if you do post, tag me, tag the organization so that we can retweet. I want to repost what you say. Of course, you know the handle for the organization is at SPIE_CSIO. I'm at Alaina G. Levine, #networking for nerds. And I also want to invite you to join me on LinkedIn. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You don't have to customize the invitation, but I utilize LinkedIn as the main way that I keep people in my community, scientists, engineers, and non-nerds as well, informed about free career planning resources. So it's where I announce free webinars and articles and blogs and tip sheets and so forth. So connect with me on LinkedIn, Alaina G. Levine, so I can keep you informed. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be discussing a few different strategies for developing workplace, for responding to workplace challenges in real time. We're going to identify the needs of our team, which could include just us, of course, to work collaboratively in a dynamic landscape. And we're going to talk about how we can articulate and we can utilize our science and engineering expertise, education, training to become a more efficient and more effective problem solver and leader. So let's start with talking about your team. So again, your team can consist of people that you're working on schoolwork with. It can consist of project teams. It can consist just of a team of one. But one thing that you need to be aware of is the makeup of the team and what motivates the team. So you need to know when you're assessing your team environment, when you're assessing the leadership challenges that you may be interacting with and may be dealing with in the future, you need to understand that your team is there to advance your organization and your project goals. So there is a specific reason that the team exists. It's there to achieve objectives. So that's an important part of understanding, because if we are going to manage ourselves and lead through and hopefully beyond leadership challenges, real-time leadership challenges, we need to know what the makeup organizational motivation is. And it's always, in general, the team itself exists to advance the organization and to advance the project's goals. So the team also is there to contribute to the success of the department, the institution, and the field. It serves as a training opportunity for you, particularly for early career STEM goddesses and gods like yourselves. I call you that because I really feel, especially in optics and photonics, when you think about optics and photonics, every single thing that we touch, that we interact with, as you know, and it still blows my mind, that every single thing that we interact with on this planet, and maybe some other planets as well, and other universes, is influenced and is touched by optics and photonics. You are the change makers. You are the revolutionaries. You are the ones who are creating the innovations that make this world better, that make us help us to understand the universe better. That's not to be taken lightly. And what I think about when I think about optics and photonics engineers and scientists like yourselves, particularly early in your career, is I think about you as goddesses and gods in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because truly you are the reason that we're able to live healthily and move forward, and the reason why we're able to achieve humanity's grand challenges. It's all stems from optics and photonics. So that's why I call you STEM goddesses and gods. So the training and the education that you got and are getting in optics and photonics and other areas of STEM, OMG, it's fantastic, because you know what? It actually will help you to navigate these real-time leadership challenges in a really, really efficient and critically positive manner. I'm going to talk to you more about that. So the team itself also gives you the opportunity to demonstrate your leadership capacity anytime that you're on a team, whether you have the authority or not, meaning you're put in a position where you're given the title of leader or manager, or you are just leading yourself. You are given the opportunity to shine. You are given the opportunity to learn and hone really, really important strategic leadership skills, team building skills, as well as other types of business and soft skills that I don't want you to undermine. I want you to understand the true value of those skills. And so by being a part of a team, you actually have that opportunity to develop those skills in an unprecedented way that other people might not. And the team itself, the culture of the team, will determine how others will view you. The outputs of the team are directly tied to your brand and your reputation. So what is your brand? I have a brand, you have a brand, your university has a brand, SPIE has a brand. Our brand, it's not a logo, it's not a cartoon character, and it's not a tagline at all. A brand is simply a promise of value. A brand is a promise of value. And your brand and my brand, very simply, our brand is our promise to deliver excellence, dependability, and expertise in everything that we do. Excellence, dependability, and expertise. The reason why brands are so important, the reason why knowing our brand, our promise of value, which incorporates all of our skills and knowledge and experience and expertise and credentials and all of those things, the reason why knowing our brand is so important and communicating our brand is so important is because since brands are tied to promises of expectations, if I engage you once, like for example, Keshav and I have been talking and I see how talented he is. I see how smart he is. I see what a good planner and what a good organizer he is. And what a leader he is, a great leader. I know that the next time I engage him, he's going to behave the same way. In other words, he is delivering his promise of value. He set it up by sharing it with me, by interacting with me in such a positive and professional manner. And so I know that the next time I interact with him, and hopefully, Keshav, we will collaborate again. Here's hoping. I know that he will deliver on that promise of value again. So I am more likely to interact with him and collaborate with him again than I am perhaps with somebody who I don't know. That's the promise of value. That's the expectation of the delivery of that promise. So what we have to do is we have to know what our brand is, what our promise of value is. And the quickest way of thinking about that is the elevator pitch, right? The 30-second commercial, the value statement, the brand statement. Those are all phrases for the same thing. It's what it is that I am skilled in and what it is that I can do for the other party. What's the promise of value that I deliver to them? What problems can I solve for the other party? So by knowing the brand, knowing our brand and being able to articulate our brand, what we're able to do is understand that we're able to build new collaborations, and we're also able to amplify our reputation. And our reputation is going to open a lot more opportunities to us as we maneuver through our careers than you could probably even imagine. So a couple of thoughts that I wanted to share with you. This STEM, and in particular optics and photonics, is itself a business. So when you are a student, when you are in this chapter or your chapter around the world, hashtag spoiler alert, you're running a business. And I say this because it's very important for you to understand how many transferable skills you're getting for your career, for your future jobs. In addition to all the optics and photonics and experience and knowledge that you're gaining, you're also developing business skills because you're part of the business of STEM. So for example, in your chapter with SPIE, you have customers. Those are your members, right? You're delivering something of value to your members. They are giving you something in exchange. It could be money, it could be time, it could be attention, it could be volunteer hours. Either way, there's an exchange of value going on. Well, guess what? That means that they're your customer. You're providing something in exchange, right? So you're giving them a product or a service. For example, this webinar. There's stakeholders and collaborators, which could be in the form of granting agencies, your department, your institution, even SPIE itself. There's budgeting, accounting, and finance associated with your chapter. You have to keep that straight and ready to go. There's sales and marketing, right? So you're promoting when Keshav very nicely and your team posted on social media that this event was happening. That's part of marketing. You are marketing this program. You are marketing your products, your services to your constituents, to your members. When you write a grant proposal, when you write a paper, when you're giving a talk, a webinar, or a poster, those are all marketing devices because you're communicating to the other party what it is you can do for them, the skills that you have in science and engineering. And you could also perhaps be developing safety and risk management experience, vendor relations. If you're buying things or procuring things, there's inventory, perhaps supply chain management. And of course, if you are on a team of more than one person, you're hiring, you're training, you're mentoring, and that can include students, postdocs, staff, faculty, and so forth. So successful leadership will mean that you have to leverage process engineering. And I love this idea. It was only a few years ago that I started to really understand what process engineers do. And as you know, that's a field. People actually study process engineering. It's closely related to chemical and safety engineering. But if you really distill it down, process engineering is about developing and wedding yourself to processes, developing processes that work for whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, and then making sure that you stick to those processes. You have to implement processes that are actually realistic, they are measurable, they can actually be achieved. There are processes to look into for contingency plans. So everything that we do as leaders, particularly as women leaders, but all of us, quite frankly, is about developing and implementing processes. So for example, I develop processes for networking. As Dr. Kawari mentioned, I do a lot of networking. It's something that I really appreciate to be able to do. I consider it an honor to be able to talk with somebody and interact and build a networking relationship, which is a win-win alliance. And the process that I have developed to network is something, it's like a checklist where I follow it every time I reach out to somebody or somebody reaches out to me to make sure that I'm building a very fruitful and productive relationship where we're both exchanging value to each other. And so that's a process that I've developed. So what we need to do as leaders is we have to develop and implement processes for everything that we do. And we will utilize these processes to identify, to articulate, and respond efficiently to real-time leadership challenges. We will use systems that work for us and our team and the nature of the work that we're doing. So one process that works for designing a webinar or a speaker series for our SPIE chapter may be great, but it might not translate to a similar type of scenario if we're planning an event for a class that we are presenting at. So we have to be aware of what system we're operating in and how that process could actually help us to be successful as a leader in that system. We do want to use systems and processes that work for us, work for our team, and work for the nature of the work that we're doing. Of course, it'll change. And we need to find a balance, interestingly enough, between the process development, the process engineering, and the soft skills, which is the management and the leadership. So now let me give you a few definitions of leadership, which really speak to me. They really resonate with me, and it's something, they are topics and they are definitions that I really think about myself as a leader. And I think that it's useful for all of us to think about these as well. So Convey says that communicating to people, leadership is communicating to people their worth and potential so clearly that they are inspired to see it in themselves. And it's a choice. Again, it's a choice, not a position. Leadership without authority. It's a choice, not a job. And so when I think about that, my goal as a leader, if I am interacting with other people, is first of all, to surround myself, to have with people, to bring people onto my team that are the smartest people, that are the most talented people, who can help me achieve this goal, who can help me solve this problem in the most productive, creative, effective manner. And what I need to do as a leader is I need to make sure that they are inspired, that they are aspiring to be the very best that they can be. Because when you give somebody the freedom, when you give somebody the space to be their best, to where you hear and see them, where you show them that you value what they say, what they're contributing, they are more productive, they are more creative. And I think this is something that particularly as women leaders, we have to think about a little bit more proactively, because I, as a woman, I want to make sure that everyone around me is seen and heard, everyone's voice is at the table, everyone has a voice at the table, everyone has a seat at the table, and everyone feels inclusive and included and welcomed. And that if you need something special to be successful, that you will come to me and say, this is a tool that I need to be my best. Can we get this? And I would say yes. And there would be a trust between the two of us. And so I think particularly as women leaders, what we need to do is we need to be able to stand up for ourselves and say, I need this to be my most successful. I need this tool. Or to be able to talk to our team, whether it's run by a man or a woman, to be able to say to our team leader, this is the kind of thing that I would like to see happen. What do you think about this? Can we move forward? Is this something we can pursue? And as women leaders, if we are the leader of the team, I think what's really important, and you know what? It's not just for women leaders, it's for men and women, for all of us. If we are leading a team of people, more than one, more than us, we need to make sure that we create a tone, that we set a tone, that we create a system, and even put processes in place, right? We're a process engineer, put processes in place where we are allowing everyone to know that their voice is heard, that they do have that, they are seen, they are heard, they are valued. That means that we have to create an inclusive space. And it's really interesting to me because it's not only important for us to do this for our teams, and it's not only important for us to do this in our careers, but quite honestly, when you think about STEM and when you think about optics and photonics, the innovations that you are discovering, the innovations that you are making, the information about the universe that you are uncovering in optics and photonics and through optics and photonics, they cannot be achieved. This cannot be achieved, and the innovations and the discoveries cannot be pursued if not for diversity of thought. See, as scientists and as engineers, we constantly need a diversity of sources of inspiration and a constant influx of diverse sources of inspiration who can help us solve our problems in new ways and look at problems in novel ways. We rely on this. This is part of the foundation of STEM and indeed for optics and photonics. So that means that if we are going to advance optics and photonics and advance the use of optics and photonics techniques to solve humanity's grand challenges, well, you know the answer. We need to create an inclusive space. We need to make sure that there is diversity of thought, that there is diversity of minds, and that everyone is feeling free and confident and strong to be able to speak their mind, to be able to share the value that they can provide, the insight that they can provide, the perspective that they can provide based on their own lived experiences. So diversity and innovation cannot be separated. They are absolutely tied together. And our job, thank you so much. I see Mahad, thank you so much. He wrote that I'm doing an excellent job. I appreciate that. Diversity and innovation cannot be untied together. They are always going to be tied together. And our jobs as leaders, our jobs as members of our community in science, as members of our community locally, geographically, nationally, wherever we happen to be, is to make sure that we do create these inclusive spaces to encourage the diversity of thought, because science and technology, humanity depends on it. It is, the stakes could not be higher. So when we talk about leadership, when I'm communicating to people their worth and potential so clearly that they are inspired to see it in themselves, I am engaged in inclusivity. I am engaged in encouraging and leveraging diversity of minds. So I am inspiring trust in my team. I'm clarifying purpose. That's a very important part of leadership. I'm aligning systems. So there's no conflict between what I say that's important and what we measure to be important, the metrics that we use. And I'm empowering others to unleash their talent. I want you to be your most productive, your most creative. Peter Drucker says, and I love this quote as well, one does not manage people. The task is to lead people, and the goal is to make productive the specific strengths and knowledge of every individual. My job as a leader is to make sure I understand what those strengths are. So a couple of different definitions, and then I'm going to give you 4 specific strategies to follow along to see exactly how you would manage real-time or lead in real-time challenges. So, but I want to share with you what I think about in terms of the difference between management and leadership. And Keshav, do you mind just throwing into the chat how much time left I have for the session? I would appreciate it. Thank you. So management versus leadership. So the manager tends to administer, the leader is all about innovation. So I want you to think about that. The manager is a copy, but the leader is original. They're trying to do things new. They're trying to solve new problems. They're trying to provide new solutions. What I have found is that the way people interact with each other. Oh, thank you so much. Well, you don't want me to speak for 7 hours, right? I mean, I could, honestly, if you don't give me a time limit, I will go on forever. So if you could just tell me how long has elapsed, that would be helpful to me. Thank you so much. As you can tell, I love to talk. It's my great pleasure. It's my great honor in life. So I do absolutely need a time limit or I will go on all night. One of the things that I think about in terms of leadership is how we are trying to solve new problems. And I think, we in optics and photonics and we in this community, what we have to do in our career is we have to be what I call a career entrepreneur, a career entrepreneur. So a career entrepreneur does exactly what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur is looking for problems that have not been solved that they can solve, or walls that are impeding innovation that they can knock over, or gaps in systems that they can help alleviate or fill, or pain points in systems that they can help alleviate. That's what an entrepreneur does. Well, guess what? That's what a career entrepreneur does. That's what a leader does. I am looking to see how my unique experience, my unique value, skills, expertise, and knowledge, and that includes all my technical abilities as well as my soft and business skill abilities. All of these things could potentially help solve a problem. All of these things could potentially help alleviate a pain point in a system. And that's what a leader does. A leader looks for those pain points that they could potentially help alleviate. Whereas a manager might notice, a manager in name might notice the pain point and just try to work around it. But the leader is courageous. The leader is bold. The leader is brave, just like you. And so they're willing to go the extra mile to actually solve the problem and fill that gap. So the manager tends to focus on systems and structure, but the leader focuses on the most important ingredient for solving problems, which is people, right? It's always about people. I was writing an article recently about pharmaceutical companies, and one of the representatives, the staff members at one of the pharma companies said to me a fantastic quote. He said, "Companies don't make drugs, people do." And I think that's important for us to remember, that it is something that we have to be thinking about all the time. Somebody just wrote that leadership is a full-time job. It absolutely is. Thank you for saying that, because it absolutely is a full-time job. And I think that when we understand that it's not only a full-time job, but it's a full-time job working with other humans, with other people, and that our job is to leverage their skills to be able to solve the problem in new ways, that it actually gives us power and it empowers our team. The manager tends to rely on control, right? I want to control your movement. I want to, tell you to do X, Y, and Z. The leader inspires that trust. And the manager tends to have a very short-term view or short-range view, and the leader has a long-range perspective. This is another thing that scientists and engineers have an advantage in. I want you to think about this for a moment. See, most people operate in a metaphorical two-dimensional plane. So they only know and operate in the plane of knowledge in which they were educated. So for example, my advisor, when I was graduating university in mathematics, I went to my advisor and I said to my mathematics professor, I said, what other types of careers are there available for somebody like myself? I know about being a professor and being a researcher as a mathematician. I know about being a teacher of mathematics. I know about actuarial studies, which is related to the insurance industry. But what else can I do with my mathematics degree? And my professor turned to me and he literally used, get this, he literally used the word nothing to describe my career prospects. I was like, what? Wait a second, that doesn't sound right. I just studied literally the language of the universe, and you're saying there's no job that ever existed or ever will exist in this universe, perhaps in the multiverse, for somebody who studied maths? That didn't seem right to me. But what I came to realize was that my mathematics professor was operating in a two-dimensional plane. See, he only knew the tenure track as a faculty member. That's all he knew, was walking down, was moving forward in this two-dimensional plane. He had no idea that there were other dimensions, other universes, other arenas and sectors, and indeed other jobs that mathematics majors could pursue because he lived in a two-dimensional plane. What we have at our disposal as scientists, as engineers, is the ability to, number one, understand that we are operating in a single plane, right? And I'm using the two-dimensional plane as a metaphor here, that we're operating for the most part in a two-dimensional plane. But that means that we have number two, which is that we can poke our head up, that we can look above and follow our eyes towards the horizon in a third dimension and see connections over here where other people who are just sitting in the two-dimensional plane may not. And as a leader, it's necessary, it's not even useful, it's necessary for us to be aware that we have to look up, look forward, and look over the mountaintop, and look up the mountain and look down from the mountain and have a 360-degree view, have a granular view on the ground, in the plane, but also be able to stand up and look. And when we stand in third dimension and look towards a second dimension, you know, we can see connections that other people can't see. And that is where innovation comes from. It comes from those connections. It comes from that diversity. It comes from a leader being able to say, wait a second, I want to see how else we can solve this problem. I want to see how else we can harness the power and the talent of our team. So the manager will always have their eye at the bottom line, but the leader's eye, which does have to be focused on the bottom line, is also looking at the horizon. The bottom line, as you know, means what is motivating the overall organization. So for example, the bottom line of a company is to make money, right? They are selling products in exchange for money. People pay for those products, or organizations pay for those products. So the bottom line is money. And there are many different types of bottom lines, but I just wanted to give you an example. And because the manager is always looking at the bottom line and not looking how they can leverage other things, they're not looking into other planes of existence, other dimensions. They're not looking to see how they can harness the power of their team. The manager accepts the status quo. Often, there's nothing we can do about this. In fact, they might even use that language. You might even hear them say, there's nothing we can do about this. Let's move on. But the leader always challenges it. And in fact, as leaders, I think an important part of what we can do is we can become what I call a challenge agent, to look for challenges, to look for gaps in systems, to look for pain points in systems, to look for those barriers to innovation that we can punch through, knock through, and create new opportunities for everybody. Because when we do that, we actually do create more innovation. Innovation births innovation, births innovation. So the manager looks to just do things right, but the leader does the right thing. So a successfully led team has a vision, what you see for your group. It's solved that the team is solving a problem, which is the discovery and or the innovation. It has that promise of value, that brand. It has a plan to fulfill that vision and deliver that value to the customers who are going to pay or exchange value for it, right? So when I write a grant proposal, the agency that gives me money is my customer in this case. I am expected to deliver something back to that agency in the form of research. So I have to have a research plan, which is my vision, and my delivery plan as to how I'm going to deliver that back to the agency. And of course, if it's a federal agency or any kind of government agency, it's not just the agency that's my customer, right? Because it's the people. It's the people of that community. It's the people of that nation that are actually paying for me to do this research. So the overall, the people are the customer as well. The successfully led team ultimately will also have a talented team that understands the value and their value and the important role that they play. So leadership in a dynamic landscape, why do we need to be ready? Because the system, the ecosystem in which we're working is always dynamic. It is always complex. It is always changed. In fact, it's often changed in real time. So if you think about this, and from my mathematics background, I really have used my mathematics education and my training in the way that I think and the way I plan and the way I do things in a very specific way. In fact, even everything that I do is influenced by my mathematical learning, education, training, and thinking. Even giving this speech, I am using my mathematics background because I think in terms of branching probability streams. So if I do this, if I say this, then these two reactions could happen. And if these two reactions could happen, then these four could happen, and so forth and so forth. And if this, then that, if that, then this. I think about, that's how I plan. That's how I think about things. I also think about things in terms of equations, that if I want to achieve a project, if I want to achieve a goal, if I'm giving a speech, for example, that I have to do A plus B plus C, which will lead me to X, which will lead me to the equation. So I think both linearly and non-linearly. And I understand that the system in which I'm operating is a complex and constantly changing system. It is constantly changed in real time by the system itself, where there's external stimulation occurring, but also the individual participants. So as I migrate forward in time and space, I am changing the ecosystem that I'm operating in, and the ecosystem is changing me. So it's going back and forth. And there's also other types of stimulation parameters which are changing the system, changing me. For example, what we're dealing with COVID, we're seeing a lot of economic factors that are stimulating the system, stimulating the ecosystem. That's changing the way we pursue careers. It's even changing what we're doing in science and engineering. So knowing that this is a complex system, knowing that it is dynamic and it's constantly changing because of the individuals, the units that are in the system, us, our team, and that the system itself is changing the units, us and our team, is an important part of what we're doing. So when we're trying to lead in, through, and beyond a dynamic landscape, we do have to recognize that every stimulation and perturbation, there is a challenge that will occur. So this is very interesting to me. When I think about managing and leading in and through and beyond leadership challenges, real-time leadership challenges, you're going to hear me in the next few minutes talk a lot about data. And I really do think that an important part of what we can do, and I'll talk to you more in depth about this in a moment, really important part of what we can do as leaders in a real-time dynamic landscape when we're dealing with challenges is to recognize that we can go back in time to find the perturbation of the system. And that is often what caused the system to change. And it seems like a simple thing. Like, of course, a perturbation would cause the system to change, right? If the system changed, we go back, we look at the perturbation, that's what caused the system to change. And you and I think about this because we have backgrounds in STEM. But what I'm trying to do is think about, excuse me, think about looking at the system, the system in which we are trying to lead in, like a scientific system, and going back and seeing what changed, what was the moment in time and space that changed, and helping us, which helps us to understand the nature of the change, the nature of the challenge that we're facing today. So in other words, here's a great example of that. When we are applying for jobs, when we're on the actual job market and we're starting to apply for jobs, we look at data points to better understand how we're progressing. So let's say we've applied for 30 jobs over the course of, let's say, a month. And in the last month, we've gotten zero interviews. So what we have to do is we have to trace back to find out in time and in space what actions were we taking that could potentially have derailed and changed the system, right? Because we were going in this direction. We were looking for a job going in this direction, but suddenly now we're down here, right? The system took a nosedive. The system went in a different direction because now we have no interviews. So we have to go back in time and look where that moment was that we actually had a change. That's the data that I'm talking about. And when we're talking about the job market, in that case study example that I just gave you, the moment that changed it and the moment that's influencing us, the, excuse me, the graph going from us moving forward in our career to going to stopping was our marketing materials. See, if there's if of 30 applications, you've gotten 0 interviews, that means that there's something that can be improved with your job application materials, your marketing materials, your resume, your curriculum vitae, your cover letter, and so forth. So we trace it back in time to the moment that changed the system. And we look at the data from that moment. This is what we're trying to do collectively and holistically and globally when we're solving real-time challenges. We are trying to identify where the stimulation occurred and when, where the perturbation occurred and when. And if we can identify when and where it occurred, then we can actually identify why it occurred and how it changed the system. And that helps us to be more of a successful leader. Challenges can come in many forms. They can be personnel related, new people coming in, people leaving the team, changes in the way we're interacting. It could be product and project related. It could be related to distribution or production. It could be related to how the team and the project are interacting with the overall ecosystem. And it could be from the ecosystem itself, such as the pandemic. That, if we go back in time, we can see when the pandemic stepped in, when we were all quarantined, our system changed significantly. Our systems changed significantly. So the good news, the fantastic news, hooray, STEM goddesses and gods, that every time there is a challenge, it makes you stronger, more agile, smarter, more efficient, more able to pivot and quickly address the next real-time challenge in an even better manner. In other words, every challenge that you are navigating is a gift. It is a gift from the universe for you to build your strength. Here's my metaphor for that. I'm a runner. I love to run. I'm extremely slow, so I'm always in the back when we're doing races. In fact, one of my favorite races, I was so slow, me and my friend, we were so slow, we had a police escort because we were the last people in the race, the very last people. So we had to have a police escort on the road. And we were so slow that the police escort had to be relieved by another police escort. That's how slow we were. But I don't care. I go my pace. Remember that for yourself. We all go our own pace running, and we all go our own pace in career and life and science and engineering. And when I run hills, and I do have a lot of hills based on where I live in Arizona, we have a lot of mountains. When I run up a hill, sometimes I will be really mad at that hill, and I will be not in a good mood, and I will be screaming, yelling at that hill. But you know what? I recognize, and if I forget, I force myself to come back to this. That's part of my process, right? I remember that I am running as a gift to myself. And every step that I take, no matter how slow it is, whether I walk up that hill that day, crawl up that hill, or sometimes I walk backwards because it's easier on my muscles, every single step that I take going forward to achieve this challenge, to solve this problem of going up a hill, I am giving myself a gift, because then I will be able to manage and lead in, through, and beyond the next hill, the next challenge, which is going to be even higher. So every challenge that we face in our career, embrace it, love it, appreciate it, express gratitude for it, because it is making you stronger for the next higher and more significant challenge. Keshav, do you mind just giving me a quick note as to how much time has elapsed since I spoke? Because I do want to be mindful of the time. Thank you so much. So now I want to walk you through 4 of my my strategies to responding to real-time challenges. These are actual strategies that I utilize myself, and I want to share them with you. So the first one is going to be, and I'm going to walk you through each of these in detail. The first is the concept of less reactive. Thank you so much. Less reactive, more contemplative. The second is the branching, which I kind of hinted at a bit, which is we identify where the data changed and the pivot point of the data so that we can then whittle back and map it back. We're going to do process analyzation, where we look to see what failed or worked differently this time in this system. And we're going to do a needs and a wants analysis and assessment, where we're clarifying needs and wants of the team to face the challenge, to move forward, past, present, and future. So let me walk you through all four of these. I often use these in concert with each other. One is not exclusive to one type of challenge versus another. I often use pieces of each one in different ways and at different times, even in the same challenge. So it really comes with experience, but having these in my repertoire, having these in my portfolio, knowing that I can rely on these when I am facing challenges helps me to be stronger, because then I can react more quickly, but I can also react more quickly in a way that is more appropriate for the challenge and also will allow me to solve the problem effectively, because that's what I'm trying to do. So the first concept is less reactive, more contemplative. And this comes from my mother, and I express appreciation to her for teaching this to me throughout my entire life. She always said to me and my brother, less reactive, more contemplative. In other words, take a moment, take a breath, and take a few moments even to observe and take data about a scenario before you react to it. And again, I think scientists and engineers, we really have an advantage in this because that's what we're used to doing. We're used to taking data. We're used to doing experiments. We're used to analyzing theories. And this is part of the concept of leadership management and leadership in real time, dealing with real-time challenges. When we're less reactive, more contemplative, it means that we take a moment to look at all the system's requirements, the system's changes, the system's perturbations, and the data that's coming in and out of the system, and our team, so that we can be effective. So this is especially relevant and vital in engineering and science-based systems, of course, but honestly, what we should do and be thinking to do is when we have a challenge, is that we don't react right away. I did say react quickly, especially in a safety scenario, and I'll talk to you more about that in a moment. We need to respond quickly. But it doesn't mean that we can't take data about the system. So what's also interesting about any system that we're operating in is that we perceive the system based on our own unique lived experiences, which are often not based in logic and science and mathematics. They are often based in feelings, in gut reactions. So what we can do with less reactive, more contemplative is take a moment in the face of a challenge, instead of responding right at that moment, instead of responding without all the data, both the quantitative data from the system itself and what changed, and the qualitative data from our own feelings and that of our team, we take a moment to compose ourselves, to breathe and remember that you yourself are the leader here. And then we want to clarify the actual challenge, because sometimes a challenge, a problem that we are trying to solve, a challenge that we are trying to meet is actually hidden in what seems to be either a larger or a smaller scenario. And our job as a leader is to be able to whittle through that and be able to see what the real challenge is, what the real problem is. And by being more contemplative and less reactive, it actually will allow us to discern and to differentiate the specific challenge from the noise around it. So there's a signal to noise, a noise to signal ratio that's going on in any challenge. And when you first have the challenge, there's a lot of noise, tons of noise, lots and lots of noise around the challenge itself. And what we have to do, and what this method allows us to do, is allows us to remove the noise and only see the signal. But we can't do that in a nanosecond. We have to give ourselves a moment to actually take in what we're observing, use our experience to be able to differentiate the signal from the noise. So determining how you will begin to collect relevant data to identify the signal from the noise, to separate them out, and also to determine what the perturbation was, what the challenge actually is all part of being less reactive. But I will say to you, especially the engineering and science goddesses that are in the audience, be confident, because you're in this role for a very specific reason. Somebody, including yourself, knows that you are going to be a positive and effective problem solver, a positive and effective change maker, a positive and effective leader. So you have the skills to be able to meet this challenge, but we have to respond quietly. So when we're dealing with a safety issue, let's say we're dealing with lasers in our lab, the laser, an accident happens, and the laser is suddenly, pointing towards our eyeball. Like, that's not the time to be more contemplative. Like, I'm not going to take a moment and think, all right, let me meditate on this. Let me be quiet for 5 minutes to decide how I'm going to handle this, because my eyeball is in danger. And you all know that my eyeballs, I am really scared about my eyes. So what I think about is, in that moment, part of our experience in being a leader is knowing that in a safety scenario, in a scenario where lives are at stake, we don't have that time. We don't have that luxury to be less reactive, more contemplative, because we have to react immediately to move the laser out of the path of my eyeball. But right after that, once everybody is safe, that's when we can actually be less reactive and more contemplative. It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be the appropriate response at that moment to start screaming, how did you let this happen? How could I let this happen? I'm so mad at you. No, let me take a moment, compose myself now that everybody's safe, and I start to identify what actually was causing the change. So then we go into the next type of method, which is the branching, right? So this is data collection at its finest. I absolutely love this, because what we're actually doing is we're collecting data about systems and about challenges within those systems and about changes within those systems that cause challenges, both in the past, the present, and immediately after that in the future. So in the past, we are actually going to move backwards through time, and we're going to look at the system as if it was a graph, right? We were going in this direction, we were going in this direction, but in either way, we were moving forward in time and space. And I would plot it 2-dimensionally. You could plot it 3-dimensionally, even 4-dimensionally, if you want to include time. But we were moving forward in some way. And then something happened, a perturbation happened, right? That was perhaps the challenge, or that was the data point that caused the challenge. Well, my goal is to look back in time and find out, first of all, when did that perturbation actually occur? And then I have to figure out what was happening in and around and with the individuals, with the team, with the system, with the ecosystem at that very moment. So by looking at that, by going back and plotting it back in time and looking at that moment in time and space, I can actually see what caused the perturbation. So I'm collecting as much data as I can. Then I move forward in time to the present. That's where we are right now. And I ask, what is the actual challenge? Because remember, the challenge could be wrapped in another challenge, an enigma, wrapped in a mystery, wrapped in a puzzle. So here I need to remove all the noise to be able to find what the actual challenge, what the actual signal is at this moment in time, the present. And then I'm thinking towards the future. Then I'm thinking, what is the appropriate response? And how can we get the system, if the system was going like this, went like this, how can I get the system to go back in this direction, to get back on track? So it's data collection through branching of past, present, and future of the system in which we're operating. The third method is process analyzation. Since we are looking at all the processes and using all different types of processes to move our team forward, to advance our project's goals, what we have to do is we have to develop processes to solve the problem, to meet the challenge. So our first question to ourselves is, what process do we have in place to manage this type of problem and lead in, through, and beyond this type of problem? And did the challenge arise, especially, did it arise because a process that we had been using in the past failed or changed or was no longer applicable or relevant, or a process needed to be adapted to the stimulation, to the perturbation, and we didn't change that? Or maybe it needs to be adapted to larger ecosystem challenges. This is something we see in the pandemic. All the processes that I used, for example, for landing and solidifying client gigs have changed significantly. As a professional speaker, I make my living giving speeches. And in late February, early March, as you can imagine, all of my in-person speaking engagements suddenly dematerialized. And what that meant for me was that my income, since I'm a business person, right, this is my business, my income was significantly impacted. And I was very nervous about this. This is very upsetting for me. Obviously, we all need jobs at any given time. We always need money to pay for our food, to pay for our housing, to pay for our family needs. If you're like me and you like cupcakes, you also have a healthy cupcake budget that you have to make sure you're adhering to as well. So these things were really at the top of my mind. So I had to think differently. I had to look through the processes. Of course, I went back in time. I branched back through time to see what was the change, right? Of course, it was the pandemic. It was everybody closing down. I started to think how I could get back. My business went like this. I was trying to see what I could do to move back in this direction. And I started to look at processes, and I realized that I needed to implement new processes to find clients, to solidify relationship with clients, to book speaking engagements. And part of what I did and I talk about this actually quite a lot these days, was through networking. See, recognizing that networking is not me trying to get something from you. It's not me trying to trick you or manipulate you into giving me a job. Networking is, in fact, the most honorable endeavor in which we can engage, because networking is not what can I get? It's what can I do for you? How can I help you? How can I help you meet this challenge, move beyond this challenge? How can I inject value into your team, your organization, your project right now and in the future? That's what networking is. So it's an act of honor and it's an act of generosity. And so I remembered that, and I started to think, what is it that I could provide that would be of value to the constituents, to my community, to my stakeholders right now? And there were two things that I came up with. Number one, there was webinars. I've been doing webinars for years. I know how to speak to a camera. I know how to deliver webinars from a logistic perspective and also from a professional speaking perspective. And the second thing that I could do was I could deliver webinars on topics that were relevant right now. So I immediately reached out to my current clients, former clients, parties who I had been talking to but had never had a business relationship with, even sending out cold emails to people saying, first of all, I recognize that we're in this odd time. I hope that you and your family and colleagues are safe and healthy. I wanted them to know that we're in this together. Excuse me. I wanted them to, excuse me, I'm sorry. 1 second. Excuse me. That's, excuse me, that's part of my process. When my voice disappears, I have to drink water. That's why I always have water here. Indeed, that is actually part of my process for speaking. So I knew that I had to reach out to all these different parties. I had to let them know that I understood we were in this together. We were humans in this odd, challenging system together. For many of us, the challenge of COVID, the challenges of the pandemic are magnified. It's a very serious and very concerning time on Earth. And so I wanted them to know that, but I also wanted them to know that I was there to support them. That if I can assist them by giving webinars, if I can assist them by speaking on networking from afar or virtual interviewing or leadership in real-time challenges, please let me know. I want to help you and your team. And what I ended up doing was I ended up booking webinars every week. So I have been speaking literally more than I ever spoke before. I speak every single week now, and I speak sometimes many times in a week. Today, for example, I'm giving 3 webinars. I started my day speaking in India. I'm coming to speak in New York in the middle of the day, and I will end my day speaking in Tokyo. So I love that. I love that aspect. But the reason I was able to do that was because I implemented a new process. I analyzed what processes I had in place to find clients, to bring in income into my life, realizing that they didn't apply anymore in the pandemic, and I adjusted. I was contemplative. I whittled back. I branched back. I looked back in time what the perturbation was. I started to think what I could do differently, and I developed new processes to navigate these real-time challenges. So this allows us to do a deep dive into the process interfaces that the team and the individuals and the system has. So how I am interacting and interfacing with the process that I'm utilizing. The interface itself might need to change. The interface itself could potentially give us data, but we may need to implement new processes. Hopefully we have processes in place, processes on top of processes on top of processes, so that when there's a failure, when there's a challenge with one process, we can adjust to another. And the final method that I use for navigating real-time leadership challenges is thinking back to the essence of the project and the team and myself and identifying our needs and our wants. Both needs and wants are vital to keeping a team functioning and productive. Both relate to our mission, our brand, our promise of value, and our goals. But what happens is in a challenge, in a new system change, oftentimes needs and wants of a system, of a team, of a project, of an individual can get confused. They can become, it can become unclear as to what exactly is a need and what exactly is a want. And there's interaction and there's interface between the two, and they're often interspersed. In fact, there's often a Venn diagram. Sometimes needs and wants are they're both needs and wants. But what's important for us is to analyze the actual needs and the wants. So what I can do right now in any system is, even right now in the middle of, if we don't have a challenge right now, is I can go back in the past. I can think about what are the needs and what are the wants of my team? What are the needs and wants associated with my project, of myself? I can even do this as I'm navigating real-time career challenges. What are the needs I want out of my career? What are the wants? They can potentially intersect, but they oftentimes are separate lists. Needs are often non-negotiables. Wants are like frosting on top of a cupcake. It's sweet, it's fabulous, but it's not necessary. So I go back in time, I make a list of what the needs and the wants are for this project, for this team, for myself. Then I go to the present moment and I examine the list of the needs and wants with the data that I have about the challenge. And I see, am I still achieving the needs, or am I more on the want side? And then for the future, I can aim to adjust that list as needed. So I might find that our needs and wants have changed. Let's use the pandemic as an example again. Our needs and wants have changed in the pandemic, which means that in the future, I can adjust my needs and wants list. Certainly as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, that's something that I think about a lot, because my needs and my wants have changed quite a bit. So some final thoughts. Safety should always be number one, both physical safety of everybody in the system, everybody on our team, but also the mental and emotional well-being as well. And your job as a leader is to make sure that you are thinking about the health of everybody. You will utilize multiple leadership strategies in concert with each other, but a guiding principle will be data, collecting as much data as you can about the challenge, the perturbations, the system, the individuals, the units of consideration, which are the individuals, the team, the organization, the community, and the ecosystem. But even with all the data, at some point in addressing the challenge, you will most likely have to respond without all the data that you need and want. And admittedly, you will also be guided not just by hard quantified data, you will be guided by your own feelings, which are guided by your own experience, your gut instinct. That's okay, because that's what makes us humans. We are not robots. We are not autonomous. We are not automated robots. We are humans who have brains and hearts. We have feelings, and feelings help us to make decisions. Instinct, gut instinct, will help us make a decision. But you're building the muscles right now, just like I'm building the muscles with every step that I take as I walk or run or cry or yell as I go up a hill. You are building leadership muscles right now so that you will get better attuned both to managing and leading through challenges at higher levels, and also, interestingly enough, to identifying what those true challenges are. So here's what I say to you. Appreciate those challenges. Express gratitude for the challenges that you are given in your day-to-day experiences, because every challenge that you face and move forward beyond is a gift that you give yourself to be a stronger, more agile, and more powerful optical scientist and photonics engineer. And for that, I don't need to wish you good luck, because you don't need it. But I will say, enjoy your amazing adventure in optics and photonics. You are an amazing goddess and god in your field, and I can't wait to see what you do next in your unicorn career. So I want to thank you so much again. This has been a privilege and an honor. You are welcome, as I said, to continue tweeting. Join me on LinkedIn. Alaina G. Levine is my URL. And I am here at your disposal. I'm here to answer any other questions you might have. So Aditi, let me know what people were asking. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The first question is from Anna Karen. She's asking, being a leader sounds like a full-time job. What to do when you are discouraged and you are not able to cheer on the team?
That's a great question. And thank you for asking that. And I saw that that had come in, and leadership is a full-time job. You are absolutely correct. But what you want to do is you want to think about if leadership is a full-time job, and it's not even just a full-time job, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. As I navigate through my life, I am leading. I am dealing with challenges every single moment of my life. They may not be business challenges. They may not be science in nature. They may not be career related, but they are still challenges. Even just getting up in the morning and deciding what I'm going to do that day and how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to be my most productive is a challenge. And it's an opportunity to shine as a leader. So what you can do is you can be grateful for the small, and I use that word carefully, I'm putting it in quotes, the small moments, the day-to-day minutia that we're dealing with, such as getting up and trying to be productive in the middle of a pandemic, or making food, making dinner for my family, or for many of us, we're at home and we have our family nearby. So being able to concentrate and achieve high marks in this class, or be able to take this test or do this homework, even while we have our family in our apartment, that is an achievement. And that requires you to put together a process. It requires you to take data. It in and of itself is a leadership challenge for you to achieve. So if we look at the day-to-day actions that we're taking, we can see that we are dealing with and meeting what I call small challenges, which allow us to be stronger and more confident for the bigger challenges. So don't undervalue and don't underestimate the value of what you do every day and how that helps you to be a stronger leader. I hope that's helpful to you, but I do appreciate that. Great question.
The second question is from Vipinder. How do you handle disagreements in your team?
Great question also. Thank you very much for that important question. So there will always be disagreement, right? Because we're humans, we're not clones, at least as far as I know. So there will always be scenarios where not everybody on the team agrees, including if I have a recognized leader of the team and I'm a member, there might be on a disagreement that I have with the leader. So what you have to remember as a leader without authority, so as a leader who is running their own lives, and as a leader in a team and a leader of a team, is, again, going back to the data. So looking back to see, when I talk about conflict resolution, I always talk about what can we do? We need to go back in time and identify when the conflict arose. And using all the different examples, the methods that I provided with you are actually ways that you can resolve and move beyond conflict and move beyond disagreements, because we're going to look at processes that we have in place for identifying conflict and what those processes taught us. We're going to collect a lot of data through branching. So we're going to go back in time to see where the perturbation happened, what was the actual cause of the disagreement. We're going to actually analyze what the needs and the wants are of the individual team members to see if they align with the team itself as the team has changed in the system. So all these things relate to that conflict resolution, but it really is about data collection and also being open to the idea that because we are humans and we may disagree with the model or the mode in which we want to move forward, we can actually still move forward, but we have to show everybody that this is an inclusive space, that everybody's ideas are welcome, that we will respect everyone, even if we disagree with it. And if we do disagree, hopefully we'll be able to present data as to why we are disagreeing. And if the team leader, and that might not be you, if the team leader decides to go in a different direction, you will be respectful of the team leader's decision because the team leader is respectful of you and wants you to be your most productive. So a lot of it is using the same methods that I described to manage and navigate beyond conflict. Thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am, these are the questions in the chat box only, and I would request.
There is one question, Aditi. There is one question by Anurag Sharma at 8 p.m.
Okay, ma'am, it is very difficult to cut out noise until we recognize what actually could be a noise. As sometimes you never know that what you're considering something as a signal now could prove to be a noise later.
That's exactly correct. Thank you so much for that great point. So the signal versus noise issue, and I appreciate that you said that. I don't often get this question, but I do get it from people who are very, very highly educated and highly talented, particularly in the physical sciences, because this is what you think about, right? In optics and photonics, you're constantly thinking about signal versus noise. So you're right about that. There are some things that look like noise that are actually signals. There are some things that are signals that look like noise. And I think the way we can differentiate between the two comes from experience. So going back to the previous question about how leadership is a full-time job, my point about looking at smaller leadership challenges day to day as training opportunities for us to manage higher level leadership challenges. Similarly, by looking at smaller day-to-day challenges where we're trying to differentiate signal versus noise, we can utilize that as a mental, a brain training exercise, so we get used to figuring out how to differentiate and why one type of signal may look like a signal at first, but actually is noise. And what differentiates that signal? What are the features of that signal that tricked me or gave me false information at first to think that it was a signal instead of a noise? So by looking at your day-to-day, you can actually start to develop those experiences, which will help you better differentiate between the signal versus noise in larger challenges. But I will say that it takes experience. It does take experience. So don't expect from yourself that you will know right away. But if you have an opportunity where you had a signal versus noise scenario and you mischaracterized it, you thought it was signal, it was noise, or vice versa, this is an opportunity for you to go to your mentor and say, this is what happened. I'd like to get your opinion about this. I want to be a sharper problem solver, and I want to better understand what I could have done differently. Could you help me walk me through this? Because the mentor typically is somebody who is more advanced in their career than yourself. So they have more experience in looking at these things, and they could actually give you advice as to what were the clues where the data changed? What were the clues as to whether this was a signal when it looked like noise? So I hope that's helpful to you. Anurag, you said that your mentor helps with this, and I appreciate you pointing that out. Mentors are indispensable in this realm.
Okay, now I would request the participants to directly unmute yourself and ask questions to ma'am.
So very fantastic talk, Liana, with a very lot of energy and really very exciting talk.
Thank you, Dr. Corey.
So I'm just a small query. What is the most challenging task do you feel as a leader to handle a project or to handle a people like?
That's a great question, and also it's a very critical one, because I think the most important thing as a leader is that since we are dealing with other humans, is that we recognize that the actions that other humans take in our team are not only going to be motivated by the team's needs and wants and by the goals of the team, but they're motivated by the individual needs and wants and goals. So by recognizing that we can't just delegate to somebody, we can't say, do this, do that. We have to recognize that they have unique perspective that we don't, and that they will need and want something out of this experience, out of this team, out of this project that might be different from what I want and what I need. And so what's very useful for me is to make sure that through constant communication, open and constant communication is I'd say it's probably the most important thing that we can do as leaders, is to make sure that there's an open forum for honest communications about the system, about the project, about the goals, so that I can gather data about everybody at different times as we're moving forward in space and time, as to what their needs and wants are and what their individual goals are as it relates to the team. So I think open communication, understanding the needs and wants and goals of the individuals as it relates to the larger project or team, those are the two, I think, important things to remember.
Thank you.
Of course.
Ma'am, there's one more question from Anna, that leaders usually need a strong character to make decisions in an optimal way, and at the time, a great understanding to communicate effectively with team members. We regularly have some dominant. Which one do you consider to be better?
Aditi, could you please repeat that question for me?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Leaders usually need a strong character to make decisions in an optimal way, and at the same time, a great understanding to communicate effectively with team members. We regularly have some dominant. Which one do you consider to be better?
I'm having just a little bit trouble hearing you, but you said it's in the chat or it's in the Q&A?
Yeah, it's in a chat. I will read it for you.
Oh, wait, no, excuse me. I see it. Now I see it. Leaders usually need to, give me 1 second to just read it. Okay, all right. Thank you for that. That's a great question. Thank you for the moment to ask. Okay, so yes, leaders do need a strong character. You need a strong character in the sense that I need, as a leader, I'm going to talk in terms of myself for a moment. This relates to you. I need to be confident in my own abilities. I need to be confident in the processes I've put in place. I need to be confident in the data collection processes I've put in place. I need to be confident in the strengths and the achievements and the talents and the knowledge of my team. So that's definitely true. But as you say, we need, at the same time, we need a great understanding to communicate effectively. So we regularly have some dominant. Which one do you consider the better, the communication versus the strong? I think the two can actually work in concert with each other at the same time. So I can be strong and set a tone for my team, that this team is going to be one of respect, that we are going to welcome everybody's perspective, everyone's ideas, but we are also going to make sure that we are communicating to each other what it is that we can do to improve the system. And I think as somebody who's strong, as a leader who's strong, one of the things one aspect of my character that's so important is to recognize and to be able to share with my team that I'm not 100% right 100% of the time. There will be times when I'm wrong. And especially as we're moving forward, and if we're to achieve the goal, and if we're dealing with a situation that has safety ramifications associated with it, I need to make sure that my team has my back and I have my team's back, so that my team knows that I'm strong enough in my leadership capabilities to admit that I don't know everything, that I need more information, that I need my team, not want, but need my team to be successful. So I think the communication comes from that. I think the communication is part of that. And I think the two of them work in concert together. So it's a very important question. Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Hello.
No, ma'am.
Yeah, Anurag, you can go.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, I heard your lecture the earlier day, and that day I also posted a question, but I couldn't get that answer. The question is like, by while being in a PhD, how important it is to get your data, step by step recording on your repository like GitHub, and do they really help to get you some good position in a career or to get your dream job?
Anurag, when you say the data, do you mean the data about career prospects, career opportunities, or do you mean some other types of data?
No, it's like that you mentioned that we need to focus on small things in life. So how important it is to get, put your small things on some, these kind of platforms like GitHub.
Oh, to share. Oh, okay, to actually share. So if you're doing, I mean, like, so you said, did I hear you right? You said putting it on GitHub?
Yeah, like that sort of.
Right. So certainly anything that you're doing that is technical, that contributes to the community understanding your success in this area, like writing computer codes, writing coding, scripting, writing programs that do certain tasks, that is very useful for you to share. And it's important to put on GitHub because more and more employers are using that as a metric. They're actually using it as a portfolio even to see how you script and how you code. So I think that that's very important. I think it's a good point to make. Thank you.
Yes, but what I want to know is like what those employers look for, even because there are so many people, doing the same thing. So what different those employers are actually looking for that we need to, make sure of.
I just want to make sure I understand your question. So what are the different things that employers are looking for in terms of what exactly, please?
yeah, like matlab, what do they actually seek from a particular GitHub profile or for a PhD or
Okay, that's a great question. And that is not my area of expertise, so I wouldn't be able to answer that. My knowledge of GitHub is that it's useful because people can post their experience basically in writing programs, but I don't know exactly what technical recruiters look for on GitHub. I imagine that it might be different depending on what type of position they're recruiting for or what type of language they're looking to see, whether it's C#, C++, Python, Java, R, whatever. So I don't have experience with that specific answer, so I apologize, I can't answer that.
Okay.
yeah, no issues, sir.
Again, I have one question, but it's regarding yesterday talk which you delivered. Can I ask?
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, actually, in academia, we have a CV which is lengthy one. We put everything what we like, but for industry, we need to keep our CV very short and very condensed. But you suggest that to put everything on LinkedIn. So how to make a impactful LinkedIn profile where you see for they need every kind of information, but this industry need very condensed information.
Another great question, Keshav. Thank you so much for asking that. So you're right about that. The CV is very lengthy. It's an exhaustive archive of everything that you've done. What you can do to have an effective LinkedIn profile is you can start by putting the major areas of your experience. So that could be projects that you did as a student. It could be, if you're a master's student or a PhD student, it could be your research assistantship. It could be your teaching assistantship that you had. If you're a postdoc, it could be your postdoc. So start by putting the experience and the skills. And what I can do is I can actually give you a shortcut, a hack here. If you go on YouTube, if you go to my YouTube channel, and you can just Google my name to find my YouTube channel, I have a lot of webinars that I've recorded that you can watch for free on there, including one on how to write a LinkedIn profile and leverage LinkedIn. It is a couple of years old, so LinkedIn looks a little bit different than it does when I recorded it, but the substance is still basically the same. So I would offer that as a resource to you because unfortunately I don't have a lot of time today, but that potentially could be a big resource to you to find out more information. So I thank you for that. And Keshav, I apologize. At this point, I have to go because I have another engagement in New York, as I mentioned.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Just in 5 minutes, we will conclude this. Thank you for your very energetic talk. Now I request Jocelyn to thank our speaker.
Hello, good evening, ma'am. So on behalf of CSIR CSIO SPI student chapter, I would like to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt thanks to you, ma'am, for delivering this webinar. Your words, the aura was so beautiful, with full of positivity, and I'm sure it boosted each and everyone attending here with such amazing leadership skills. We are grateful to the speaker for being with us, and we mention our deepest sense of appreciation who have directly or indirectly helped to make this webinar successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you so much.
Now I request everyone to switch on their camera so that we can have a digital selfie with our speaker.
It's nice to see everybody.
I request everyone kindly switch on their camera so that we can have a digital selfie with our speaker.
Oh yeah, I want to get a copy of that, please. If you feel comfortable, I would love to have you in a selfie, and I'll tweet it out too.
Yeah, sure. We'll send it to you.
Okay.
Okay,
How
on
about a
count
high
of
five?
3.
Everybody doing a high five?
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank Miss Alaina for sparing her valuable time to give such inspiring talk with her everlasting energy. I'd like to thank her for her kind words for our chapter, and we will definitely like to collaborate with you in future with your various levels of your expertise. And I like to thank each and every participants for spending their valuable time to attend this webinar. And they must have there is some takeaway from all of them. I like to thank each and every member, our chapter member. Without them, this event is not possible. And I'd like to thank our chapter advisor, Dr. Umesh Tiwari, to provide us resources and all the facilities for the. Thank you, everyone. This webinar is concluded.
Thank you so much. This was a true privilege. I don't take it lightly that you invited me. I am deeply honored, and it was my privilege and my pleasure to be here today. So thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, kind words. Thank you.